to be with us today. We really appreciate the support that you are giving us as the National School of Government, most of all as Cadet. As Cadet, we are here to look after youth and to look after employees who are joining the public sector for the first time. And as our motto goes, we are building future leaders as Cadet. So I am looking forward to learning and being empowered by what each and every one of the speakers has to share with us today. Without further ado, I would like to wish you all a fruitful engagement. And in the words of Franklin D. Roosevelt, I quote, "We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future." Close quote. Thank you very much and all the best with the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malachi, for that warm welcome. Without wasting any time, I would like to welcome Mr. Ephraim Megwa to set the scene, for this webinar, just to give us the purpose of the webinar and the layout of the program. Over to you, Bra Ifi. Thank you.
Kindly unmute Ephraim.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I was saying welcome, colleagues. Sorry, I don't know as many languages as Dr. Izzy does, but welcome to the webinar. My purpose here is to say to you, why did we organize this particular webinar? Now, you will know that part of our responsibility as the National School of Government is to do training for young people. And almost everywhere we have gone to, when we engage and interact with young people, especially our interns, they always raise concerns about supervision and about mentorship that they are receiving from ourselves as colleagues. Of course, there are some of us here who are very good supervisors, very good mentors, and so on. But we cannot ignore the voices of those young people who are saying, hey, we are not being properly supervised and we are not being properly mentored, we are not being properly prepared. And then this now brings to us the analogy of riding a bicycle. If you're teaching somebody how to ride a bicycle, how do you go about doing it? The person has got to know, you have got to make sure that the person knows what the bicycle is. You might even want to give a bit of background about that bicycle. And in this case, I'm talking about the bicycle being the public service and so on. You might want to hold this bicycle for him or her, or even show him or her how to actually, sit, on the seat and how to ride the bicycle. And it is now this being you as the supervisor, helping this young person to grow in the public service and also as a future leader. So therefore, based on all these concerns that we've been receiving, but we are also aware, working with some of the managers and coordinators, some of whom are actually in this webinar, and they will share their experiences a little bit later. They have also raised issues about what they observe in their departments in terms of how these young people are being supervised and some of the challenges that they go through. As a result, therefore, we thought, Norman, let us have this engagement. And as you will see, we call it a learning cycle. And I must say that I must acknowledge Dr. Lucille, who's going to speak shortly, for introducing us to this concept of a learning cycle. Because we were inviting her as the main speaker, guest speaker. And she said, no, I don't want to be referred to as a guest speaker because I want to see this as a learning cycle. Therefore, which means that it's an opportunity for us to interact, to share ideas, to learn from each other, And so she's going to give the keynote, the main contribution in terms of the program, and then we'll also get a presentation from Mr. Nyuko Mabunda from the DPSA, just talking about what do they expect from us as supervisors, as mentors, and as coaches, from the DPSA perspective, maybe even from the policy perspective, because they are the custodians of all these programs that we are implementing and so on. And then we'll hear some of the practical experiences from our own staff members in the NSG here about, how they handle issues of supervision and mentorship and so on. And then we'll also hear a little bit from some of the colleagues who are from different departments and provinces and so on. They will also share with us their experiences. So the main purpose really is just to say, this is the space where we want to share ideas, learn from others in this particular learning cycle. I wish to thank you very much, Program Director, and hand over to you to please lead us in this particular webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mekwa, for that brief scene setting. We thank you so much, and also highlighting the bicycle, scenario relating to public servants. We thank you so much about that. So now, without wasting more time, I would like to welcome Dr. Lucille Meyer to the podium. But before she starts, I would like to briefly go to her biography. Okay, Dr. Lucille is the Chief Director of the Chrysalis Academy, widely regarded as a global leader in holistic youth development. Her professional experience includes serving as a Deputy Director General for the private office of our former President, Thabo Mbeki. Her accolades include a Lifetime Achiever Award by the Minister for Social Development in the Western Cape Provincial Government. She is a yoga therapy teacher, certified tension and trauma release provider, and a trainee for Gender Equality and Reconciliation International. She has served on a number of public sector task teams as a member of Western Cape Premier's judging panel for the Social Innovation Challenge of the Year Beyond Youth program from 2015 to 2016, and again in 2019. She has a month holistic and healing-centered program to vulnerable youth across the Western Cape. She has an MED in adult education, MBA, MPhil in management coaching, and a directorate in education. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Dr. Lucille Meyer. So, Doctor, I must welcome you to the program. Over to you. Thank you.
So a very good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us in this important dialogue around working with young people in a proactive and positive manner. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you to the National School of Government for inviting the Academy to share some of its thoughts. So I am going to share screen, and I hope technology is going to be kind today, which it is not. There we go. So I'm going to really share our approach to supervision mentoring and coaching. Just to declare that I have been working with young people for over 30 years as an activist. I've been in the public service from 1996, and currently I'm the CEO of the Chrysalis Academy. So let me center youth voice in this conversation. And I want to share 2 quotations by young people. The first one I found on Twitter a year ago, written by a young man I mentored over 20 years ago. And he says, "Today I woke up grateful for Lucille Meyer. She trusted me with my first job. She taught me diligence and compassion. A chapter in my book will be dedicated to her." He wrote this last year. I mentored him over 20 years ago. Then in 2004, I received this message from a person I supervised. And I will just read the last part. She says, "In the past 13 months, I have grown and developed as a person, mainly due to your continued support and positive influence." And she says, "One day when I grow up, I want to be like you." So these comments are not about me as Lucille Meyer. They are about an approach to supervision, mentoring, and coaching that I call, and that we call at the Academy, a radical love approach to supervision. I want to repeat that, a radical love approach to supervision. So we can look at these human resource development processes as liberatory or as oppressive and disempowering. In other words, colleagues, we always make a choice how we're going to lead. So are we doing this in a liberatory way or in an oppressive way? So to lead in a liberatory way means that we are supervising with deliberate intention. So there's an intentionality. And the intentionality is a deep longing to serve people, to ease their suffering, and to grow future leaders. So leading, supervising, mentoring, coaching is about making a deliberate intention. So very briefly, when I talk about supervision today, I'm not talking about managing people. I'm talking about leading people. I'm talking about enrolling people in a particular way of working. I'm talking about influencing one's direct reports. I'm talking about role modeling and supporting. That is supervision, leading people. Mentoring means I am a fellow traveler with a young person. I have the experience, but we are fellow travelers on a journey, and I become the thinking partner. Coaching means I'm supporting, I'm guiding, and teaching. So when we work with young people and we lead them and we supervise and we mentor them, we represent to them what I call the social and cultural capital. That's what we represent for young people. So I love this diagram, which is the chrysalis diagram of working with people. We see the butterfly. that represents the future leader. But this process starts off with the butterfly being an egg or a caterpillar. That means the young person is a living organism, and the chrysalis is the cocoon. So when we lead and supervise and mentor people, we are the catalysts for that butterfly to emerge. And that chrysalis, that cocoon, is about the radical love. That we work in a way for young people's potential, which they have, for that potential to manifest. So that the butterfly that emerges with alchemical resilience to change not only their own lives, but to change the systems within society. So that is what I'm talking about, that trajectory of development resulting in this butterfly in its full beauty. So what is this thing called radical love that we want to mainstream in society? Radical love means I am choosing to grow future leaders. And I'm choosing to grow future leaders because I have the deep desire to ease the suffering of people. And Bell Hooks talks about radical love as a verb, because she says, when you apply radical love, you create something bigger than what you started with. And the National School of Government talks about Direla Bato. We serve the people with love. That actually epitomizes this approach to leading people. It stems from that deep desire to serve the people with love. Direlo Bato. So what does this approach of radical love mean? It means that when we work with young people, we recognize that they are whole human beings. And that what young people are is a unity of thinking, of feeling, of actions, perceptions, and emotions. When young people come to work, we don't only work with their heads, we work with the whole human being in their totality. When we talk about radical love, we recognize that people are shaped by their lived experience. So this diagram, which I'd like to thank Stacey Haynes for, who's a somatic therapist, says that people don't grow up in isolation, that the young person we are leading in the public service belongs to a family, and that family sometimes has issues. The young person lives in a community with all sorts of things happening. That young people is influenced by social institutions, by political, by economic institutions. And that young person is influenced by historical forces, colonialism, apartheid, systems of patriarchy. And we are, of course, all influenced by the land and spirit. In other words, colleagues, we're recognizing that the young people who comes into my care has been shaped by all these different levels. So what it means that young people are not homogeneous, and that for many young people that we want to attract into the public service, their socialization is linked to survival. They are just trying to get by. So we have to recognize that. We have to recognize that both me as the leader and the person that I am working with, we have been shaped by our ecosystems. What is also important to remember, and this is so exciting, when we lead young people, we work with them at different levels. Firstly, how they show up in present time, and then how they have been shaped historically. And then more importantly, they already have the seed to become something else. So it's how they present, how they've been shaped, and who they are becoming. We need to remember with young people, particularly 18 to 25-year-olds, they are still searching for who they are. The search for identity is still very paramount. So when they come into the workplace, what do they seek? They seek belonging, they seek dignity, and they seek safety. Therefore, our workplaces must ensure that young people feel they belong, that their dignity is upheld, and they feel safe physically and psychologically. And a radical love approach says we must recognize that many of our young people have been exposed to trauma. Trauma is everywhere, and it happens all the time. And some young person who I'm going to mentor or coach may have been exposed to trauma. So what does this mean for us as supervisors, mentors, or coaches? Colleagues, we have to choose that we're going to lead in a deliberate way. Secondly, we have to look at the neuroscience. The neuroscience is about how the brain has developed, how the brain works. And we work with people neurosequentially. What that means, I have to regulate with people. I have to relate to people, and then I reason with people. So there's the connection, the intimacy, the relationship that is important. We've got to remember that with young people, the adult brain, the prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain, is still developing, particularly if we are working with 18 to 25-year-olds. So there's a lot of risk-taking. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot they need to learn about planning. So I've got to recognize this in the way I work with young people. And colleagues, what is very important is your nervous system state. Isn't that interesting? How I lead is very much influenced by the state of my nervous system and the state of the nervous system of my direct report. This is a beautiful diagram that I would like to invite us all to read about. It's called the polyvagal theory. It's got 3 colors. At the bottom is the green state of social engagement. When I can connect with people, I am curious, they are curious. We are grounded and present. Colleagues, when we lead, when we supervise, we have to be in a space of social engagement. The orange and the red is the nervous system of fight and flight. When my direct report is in that state, or I am in that state, it's very hard to connect with people. It's very hard to reason with people. It's very hard to influence people if I'm in a state of panic. The blue state is the state of hopelessness. It's a state of depression. When I'm in that state, it's really hard for me to lead people. So this diagram is very, very important, because leading people is not a cognitive thing alone. It's really a function of your whole being. And what I am inviting us to do is to lead from that green space, a space of connection, a space of love, a space of curiosity. As I come to an end, I want to say my big message: worry about building relationships with young people who come into the public service. If you are a supervisor, be a whole body listener. What I mean by that, please do not have an engagement with your direct report where you're sitting in front of the computer and they're standing in your space. Close the laptop. Sit, even having no table between the two of you, and connect from the head, the heart, and the gut. This is key. Young people seek relationship and connection. The thing that's important when we work with young people is structure, regularity, predictability, continuity. What that means is I have to set engagements with my direct reports. If I'm mentoring, if I'm coaching, if I'm supervising, it's about structure. They need to know every Friday I am meeting my supervisor. The other thing we want to do with young people, we want to help deepen their ability to reflect. Why? The adult brain is still developing. We have to, in a sense, cultivate reflection. The COBE model, which we learn about in adult education, is very important. And it means when I meet my direct report, I talk about, so how was your week? What did you learn? What worked well? So I'm taking their direct experiences, we're reflecting on it, I'm drawing the lessons, and I'm helping my direct report plan. So in a sense, you can see how we're working deliberately, because I am cultivating this capacity for reflection and thinking. We have to, colleagues, recognize the limitations of our education system. We have two education systems in this country. One for the ones who can afford it, and an education system for the vast majority of our people. So when they come into the workplace, we have to help them cultivate these critical competencies. And in ending, I want to say, supervising, mentoring, and coaching young people is not so much about them, but it's how we lead, how we show up. Do we embody love for people? Do we embody a service orientation? In other words, am I role modeling the kind of public servant we want them to become? Remember, young people do as we do. And they are very vigilant when, as leaders, we are incongruent. What that means, we give the rhetoric of service, but we don't do that. So it places the responsibility on us to show up in our fullness. That is what the times require of us. We need to care, we need to serve, we need to love, and we need to show up in our fullness for the young people of our country. I say, colleagues, let us strive not to explain our philosophy to people, but let us live it. When people walk into a government department, they should know this place is about radical love. This place cares about its citizens. That is my invitation to all of us, and I thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. That was a very, very good, detailed presentation, Dr. Meyer. You know, reflecting from your presentation, I took out, you know, two things that you emphasized, like for an example, the supervision, because, you know, most people, they take it very light, especially when you supervise the young people. So what I have taken out is like you are leading people. You are a role model to these people. So whatever that you do, make sure that you have followers, you know. And then the issue of mentoring, I liked where you said, I am a follower with experience. So you are a person with an experience mentoring a person who does not have. So you make sure that you support that person, you know, you guide and you coach that young person. So that is what I have taken out from that presentation. So thank you so much. So now what I will do, I would ask if there are people who have questions to put them on the Q&A chat box. It is open so that Dr. Meyer can answer from that chat box. Thank you so much, Dr. Meyer. Right now, we will go to the DPSA. In DPSA, they will tell us what is expected from the supervisors, the mentors and coaches of youth participating in various development programs of government policy, from the policy perspective, as they are the custodian. So now we will welcome on the podium Mr. N. Mabunda, Ms. B. Khonze, and Ms. H. Mabasa. Over to you, DPSA. Thank you so much.
Colleagues, my name is Nico Mabunda. I'm the acting Deputy Director General responsible for Human Resource Management and Development at the DPSA. It was quite an interesting presentation that was presented by Dr. Meyer. It provides us with the thinking around the philosophies and the approach that we should be taking in terms of how we, not just how we engage with people, but also how we treat ourselves in terms of how we carry ourselves as we move forward. So as mentioned with my colleagues, and they are the experts in this area. So when you have any difficult questions, they will be the ones that will have to answer. So thank you for welcoming us, and we're really thrilled to be here. We'll take a little bit of a different approach. Firstly, is just to demonstrate that what we view as a human resources that the public service needs to fulfill its promises. So so we need to look at all different ways that we can to improve how we build capacity, how we assess that capacity, how that capacity contributes towards economic development, the transformation agenda of government, and how we assist the public service to fulfill its mandate. But again, one of the critical challenges we have had was that we have seen the public service has a lot of good case studies, but we are not able to institutionalize those case studies. We have a lot of good pockets with good excellence and great people in coaching in areas such as what we have learned during COVID-19, the future of work, the fourth industrial revolution. And we have not looked at how the professionalization framework is supposed to be implemented in terms of how we live constitutional values, how we recruit young people, how we actively manage the issue of succession in government. And when we talk about coaching and mentorship, we're talking about cultivating the next level of leadership of the public service. So those are the things that we need to do. We need to really reflect on the skills that we'll need in the future, and we'll come back to some of these things and how we're going to be building on those skills so that we close that skills gap. We need to and what type of public servants will need to be in those positions to deliver that future public service. We also need to be able to forecast, understand scenario planning, and improve the coordination of skills development so that we're able to deliver on some of these things. So over the past couple of years, we did a study in 2018-2019 on the graduate recruitment program, the public service, including that we don't really know, and we don't really recall, or departments rather, don't really know, and they don't recall the type of appointments, the type of learnerships, the type of trainings that we provide to interns or participants rather in the graduate recruitment program. And if we don't know those type of things, it means we don't know what type of qualitative skills development, capacity and mentorship is being provided to the youth in the public service that are coming into the public service, which means then we will not even be able to manage and cultivate that. There's also a lack of understanding on how we should be spending our budget. There's also one of the critical challenges that came out is that when interns leave or finish their 24 months, that we have no process of absorbing them into the public service. There's also a big challenge in terms of how we employ people, how we absorb people into the public service, because of the rigidity of the employment conditions that were placed, sometimes to just close people off because we want to be kept, we want to be the only ones in the public service. So these remain a major challenge. And all of this because we're doing them in a compliance-driven approach. It means that we don't have in the public service to be mentors for the mentees that we have. We also find that we then have to depend on external people that are more volunteers, or even worse, the use of consultants and beyond the 12 months contract that we have with the mentors. Sometimes because of our competitive procurement system, we then have to make sure that we then lead to mentors changing, and then there's no continuity. And as the previous speaker mentioned, we need to have that continuity as we move forward. So I'll just move a little bit quicker. So this is just a summary of the last last slide that I made, is that interns are used to perform work for, these are not supposed to be, this is not supposed to be the case. Interns are supposed to be learning and moving around so that they can learn how to do the work and not would necessarily perform positions that are left unfilled for whatever. No, we don't have a tracking mechanism to check where they've gone, how far they've gone, and whether our internship did assist them in terms of developing the skills. You'll recall that the existence of the graduate recruitment program is to make sure that interns are given that first experience so that they can access the job market. I've already spoken about the lack of a formal absorption process, the lack of a formal coaching and mentoring of mentoring contracts, which means we do mentoring and coaching in an haphazard approach. We don't know what succession planning is in the public service. And most of the participants in the graduate recruitment program are found to be disadvantaged when they seek training opportunities within the public service, which is quite frankly incorrect, and we should try to address that. So this is just a highlight of how many interns we had in the last intake. We had a total of 24,517 interns, and in terms of the what we not interns rather, but what we call learnerships, internships, the graduate, which is part of the graduate recruitment program, the artisanships and the apprenticeships. So all of these ended up over the past 3 years at 45,000, almost 46,000 participants. But we want to come up with a proposal for the managers in the graduate recruitment program, or largely the interns, are managed when they exit the internship program. The first one is that all vacant entry-level posts, so that they have that opportunity to be to have access to that position. Especially at the lower levels, so that we have younger people coming in. We also think that we should have a clearer understanding of what skills are and critical skills are, and we try to retain those interns through those processes, as mentioned in sub-regulation 26. We also need to look at the encouragement that we have shared, that 10 plus percent of the vacant posts should be retained for graduates who have been identified to have potential with skills positions. And then lastly, as part of the graduate recruitment program, we really need to provide entrepreneurial and job seeking skills so that we can move forward. Now, we were asked to look at what exactly are the legal provisions that are guiding us. I think all of us are aware of the Constitution, especially Chapter 10, in that it calls us to have a good human resource management and career development practices that will maximize human potential. So this is what we are supposed to be doing as senior managers in the public service and all public servants moving forward. So in terms of the specific employment policies for the youth in the public service, We have a directive on the appointment of persons into development programs, which are what lead us into internships, learnerships, apprenticeship, graduate development program, graduate development, and other structured youth development programs, which was issued in 2018. We also have a framework for graduate recruitment schemes that then guides us in how we prioritize skills and youth development. We also have a directive on the application of minimum requirements for the appointment into entry-level posts across the public service. So all of these are made to ensure that there's a constant supply of skills that are so that we are able to deliver what we're supposed to deliver on. It also allows us to build in a way the future skills, or what we call the pipeline. So this is just a global picture of the public service, really, and how the public service treats youth. So overall, we only have about 24.5% of youth in the public service, and the majority of them are actually in developmental programs. And for a country that is largely youth, this is then becomes a problem, 1.30%. And mostly these are officials or youth that are in the offices of our politicians, EAs, DMs, and MECs, and premiers and ministers, because it's easier to recruit people into those positions. And we need to learn how that regulation that deals with the recruitment into political offices can be implemented across the public service. So in terms of what we are supposed to do, when we look at the directive of development on developmental programs in the public service, this is what the core of mentors and mentees are supposed to do. It leads to this. So I'm going to read this so that you can internalize it, because this is the core of what we were asked to deal with. So we need to have a designated mentor that is appointed for each and every person that is in a developmental program. And I can tell you now that it's very difficult for the DPSA to establish who amongst the interns, amongst the learners, have been allocated a mentor, because most departments have not done that. And a mentor could be a supervisor, but sometimes it does not even have to be the supervisor. And we have departments just look at the supervisor and say, you are the mentor. And mostly when you look at mentorship and so forth, it doesn't necessarily talk about the supervisory work that is being done. It goes beyond the issues of supervisor and supervisee relationship, as Dr. Lucille was mentioning earlier. So as part of the performance agreement, there is a need for a mentor, and the mentor must be able to guide a mentee on how they perform, what they must do, how they assess their performance, how have a regular interaction, have a feedback loop. Communication is quite critical. And once that is done, and this links to the point that I made earlier, that once you have done the assessment, you should be able to have targeted training and development, whether it's offered by the NSG or other recognized training institutions. But what we have noted is that departments tend to neglect that part of their responsibilities of making sure that interns are given that opportunity to study. So the roles of supervisors is to ensure that there's accountability, they have the accountability, they exercise their authority over their subordinates by providing the support, the necessary support. The supervisor should be concerned about both the organization's goals as well as the individual. That's exactly what we mean. When we say the linkages between the organizational and individual goals, we must also have clear instructions that are legal and directives that are given to employees, and we must then provide that mentorship that is supposed to be given to colleagues. And because the supervisors are not necessarily the mentors then have to be able to go to the next level beyond what the supervisors will do. Cultivate that personal and professional relationship that then provides guidance to the mentee, introducing to new knowledge, sharing experiences in the field, providing advice, and just being able to connect and be able to be approachable to the mentee, so that whenever the mentee has issues that they need to deal with, they are able to share with their mentors. In terms of coaches, these are formalized approach to development. And that's where we request coaches to teach mentees about self-discovery, about being aware and creative, being able to demonstrate how a mentee will be able to harness their internal strength and so forth, and being able to guide a mentee to be a professional in a way, and that's what coaches are supposed to do. So they are mostly future and action oriented, and there are very specific areas that are supposed to be dealing with. We need to have shared vision between the coach, the mentor, and the mentee. We also need to have the ability to empower each other. Excuse the spelling there, the empower. We also need to be able to inspire each other, both the intern or the mentee and the mentor must be able to inspire each other. There's nothing as difficult as having to work with someone. It's a two-way street, and both should be able to commit to and so forth and so forth. In terms of the step-by-step guide on the roles and responsibilities of a mentor, it is very important that all the things that we have mentioned below or before come into play. And we have developed a methodology or a tool that guides public servants on how to play their role and their responsibility in terms of being a mentor. So all of the things that I was mentioning here, from this slide to this one, demonstrate all are then brought into play here through that guide that we have provided, including when you should facilitate development, when you should provide feedback in terms of being accessible, how you become supportive beyond the work environment. When right now there are a lot of anxiety and psychosocial needs that the young would need, especially support, especially when they are moving from a role where they are still developing, as the previous presenter mentioned, to moving from adapting from being a student to being a public servant or a working professional, trying to manage and balance work-life balance and so forth, and just being able to mobilize your ability as an individual so that you are able to deal with all of that. So we are sharing this presentation, and I hope that colleagues will do the work that we are doing. We last year hosted a future of work Indaba in the public service. And we then came up with what a future modern employee experience will be like. And these are the understandings that colleagues are supposed to have, whether they are a mentor, a mentee, a supervisor, a coach, and so forth. We understand that you have a worker that must be able to work using e-government, e-services, ICT, there will be automation, so there must be that modernization part of it. There will be the employee health and wellness, so that even though people will be allowed in the near future to work from home, you should still have that balance between the office as well as your own personal space. There should be that long-term partnership approach to coaching, as well as mentorship. And that's when we now re-emphasize the issue of having a joint vision and strategy for both the organization, by the way, as well as the officials. And what is coming up now is that there's a lot of a need for design thinking to understand metrics working, which means you don't only concentrate on what you are developing or what you are working on or what your job says, but also how you become a team worker, how you assist your colleague, how you understand the type of relationship that you're supposed to have with your colleagues and so forth. So we have picked up is that there is a need for a formal coaching and mentorship program in the public service, because without that, it has led to a loss of skills and talented young people leaving as they've been demoralized by the system and the environment that they find themselves in. We are unable to talent manage, especially the areas that are scarce skills and so forth. We have then launched what we call the Emerging Leaders in the Public Service Program, what we call the ELIPS program, which is now being piloted and is trying to look at formally introducing coaching and mentorship across the public service. So it has about 120 selected participants who are coached by 9 people who are largely in the public service. And this program is supposed to pilot what we are saying should be happening. So it will allow the DPSA and the whole of the public service to understand what the challenges are, how we can have, how we can introduce a formal assessment, psychometric tests as part of the entry requirements into the public service, how we then formalize the personal management development system, and how we create a formal coaching system towards the development of leadership, as well as building capacity for the future. So all of these are now happening parallel to the current program of reviewing the full graduate recruitment program. And it's part of the what we intend the future of work ambassadors program, which has appointed about 33 young officials across the public service that are then looking at the performance of the internships and providing the DPSA with feedback.
Mr. Mabunda, I think your background is not clear. I don't know if maybe it's the connectivity from your side. The sound is not clear. Colleagues, I think Mr. Mabunda on the other side, the connectivity is a bit of a challenge. But I think, I don't know, he was about to conclude, or I'm not sure if the colleagues from the DPSA maybe would like to say something about the presentation, because I see we've got Buntle as well as Mr. Mabasa, if maybe they would want to share anything from that presentation. while Mr. Mabunda is still having the connectivity challenge on the side. Bontle and Ms. Mabasa, anything from your side?
Good morning, Program Director, and good morning to everyone. I think from our side, DPSA, Mr. Mabunda has covered almost everything. And up until to the last presentation, I think when he started breaking up, it was the last slide. So basically, I think everything has been covered. And perhaps maybe we can just engage with the question, maybe to look at the questions that are being raised or the comments, and then maybe respond from there. But in terms of the presentation, I think everything has been covered. Thank you, Program Director.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Hunse. I think when it comes to the presentation, we are going to share it on the platform. And also when it comes to questions, okay, I see that Mr. Megwa is having the hand up. Mr. Megwa, over to you.
Yeah, I saw a question here that I thought maybe Bontle Kulsoma respond to as she was asking for questions. It says here, what was the criteria for selecting emerging leaders? I don't know if Bontle, you want to respond to that question now, if there's any direct answer to that. Okay, Ayanda?
Bontle, hello, Raif?
Yeah, if she's not hearing us, maybe we should proceed, yeah.
No, she can hear us. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Thank you, Program Director. I think if we can look at the last slide that talks about conclusion, the second bullet, it does indicate that this program was coordinated from the Office of the DG. I think it is a response to, it responds to that question.
Thank you so much.
So, so basically the criteria can be shared following this, but it was coordinated through the Office of the DG. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Bontle, for that response. And also I see that on the platform, we've got about 295 participants. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, colleagues, for attending from various departments. We really, really appreciate as NSG, because we know that, you know, you have left your offices and your busy schedules just to come and be with us. We really, really appreciate that. And also thank you to Mr. Nico Mabunda for that presentation. I think everybody knows exactly what is the GPSA recruitment scheme, if I may put it like that. So thank you so much. Right now, we will go to NSG colleagues. We go to NSG colleagues right now, who will be sharing, about the supervisor, mentee perspective, HR perspective, mentee perspective. So they will share how can we ensure effective supervision, mentorship and coaching for youth. They will give us practical, experiences and lessons. So we will start with Ms. Matswai Sahane. she will give us an HR perspective, and then we'll go to Ms. Sarah Makoba as a supervisor, mentee perspective, and then lastly, it will be Mr. Lesego Nkomane, a mentee's perspective. So NFP, over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues, and thank you to the NSG colleagues for the organizers of the webinar to invite us as the support of the NSG staff members to come and share our experiences in this webinar. My name is Matsoi Hlahani. I'm the responsible manager for all developmental programs in the department. And one of the programs that we have currently in terms of DPSA directive is the graduate internship program. My presentation will be short. I will just share with you our program in NSG. How do we facilitate and coordinate the developmental programs? Firstly, we do advertise our internship program in the DPSA website like other departments. And in the program, we do have a policy that has been approved, and it is in line with the DPSA directive that was approved in 2018. And in the program, we do have the supervisors and the mentors. I will share with you how we appoint supervisors, how we appoint mentors, and the role of HRD, HRMND in the whole program. Firstly, when we advertise the internship, the units, the branches, we call them the branches in the department, they will appoint the supervisors. They will indicate that in our branch, the following directorates or chief directorates are the ones that will host the intern, the placed graduate interns, and they will also nominate the managers, those who will be supervisors and supervisors for those graduate interns or any other learner that will come with a developmental program. And in terms of our policy, the supervisors should be at the deputy director level. And the role of the supervisor, they will participate in the placement process. For example, the shortlisting and the recruitment processes when we place the graduate interns, and they will develop persons in the developmental programs, interns, any other who come as a learner in the department in their areas of responsibility. For example, an intern placed in finance, the role of the supervisor will be to expose the learner in the area of finance. And they do sign the work plan agreement with the interns or any other learner that will come through the developmental programs. And they do quarterly assessments, they sign the leave forms, all those administrative functions of a supervisor. They do. And in their performance agreement, they also include that function as their responsibility. And why do we have supervisors appointed by the branches and at that level? The reason is that we want them to teach the learners about areas of work, the task in that area of work, and to provide skills and enable them to compete for jobs in the market. As you are aware, the NSG or any other department, they cannot absorb all the interns. Even when we advertise posts, they still have to compete. So it's to compete with other candidates outside. So it's the role of the supervisor that when they have they are awarded that responsibility, given that responsibility to supervise the interns. They do the thorough work. And the other thing that we also have in the policy is the mentorship. We advertise, the HRD will advertise, put an advert outside there for staff members who are willing to mentor the intern or any other learner to join the mentorship program. And we also annually have a target where we train staff members on how to be a mentors, and they will attend. NSG has a program for mentorship in public service for senior managers. All our mentors, those who volunteered, they will go through that program and they submit a POE so that they are found to be competent. So we ensure that our mentors attend such training, but they do volunteer to be into the program. And their roles will be to discuss expectations of a mentee at the beginning of a contract. They recommend to the supervisor the mentee in learning areas, and they build capacity and self-reliance in the mentee. And one of the things that they do, they enter into a mentorship contract between themselves and the mentees. And why the mentorship? On top of the supervision of the learners. The reason why we have mentorship is to support the professional growth of those learners who are in the early stage of their career, for them to develop knowledge and skills required to function effectively in the work area. And again, we also want them to provide skills that will assist them to compete outside. And we had challenges with the mentorship. People will volunteer, but during the course of the year, they just disappeared. But we have changed that to assist the department and even the mentorship for them to be committed. We appoint them through the letter as a way of showing them that we do appreciate your participation into the mentorship program. And our last slide is the role of the HR unit in the whole process, is that we ensure that there are funds allocated through our Office of Chief Financial Officer, and continuously evaluate and improve on the program. Like when we assess at the end of the financial year where the gaps are, we'll have to come up with ideas or programs that will close those gaps, and we provide advice and support to the learners and their mentors and the supervisors. We arrange training, compulsory training that they need to attend. However, there's also training interventions that may be identified by a supervisor or a mentor during the sessions, and we ensure that they do attend such trainings. And we monitor and develop the program itself. We support we submit the reports to the PSA as required, but even if the issues in the relationship between the learner, supervisor, the mentee, we also try to intervene and assist. And in a place where the learner or the supervisor or the unit, they request that the learners be rotated, we also facilitate that so that it be standard and fair to all the learners placed in the department. And then our role again is also to expose different areas, to expose them within the different areas in the department. For example, if Office of the Chief Financial Officer, they conduct asset verification, we ensure that the learners, they go there, they learn, and there's a supervisor allocated to them to explain the process before they start and even monitor them, supervise them, and even provide feedback to their supervisors after the project has been completed. It's not in the finance only, all over in the department. I'm just making an example with the Office of the Chief Financial Officer. And again, we also responsible to give them, our learners, the resources to perform their work. On their first day, we ensure that they have computer, they have airtime, they have access to working stations, telephones and internet, and other benefits that they need, like for those like staff members they have, so that they can be able to perform their work. We also have those that are traveling, they will get SNT if they travel outside the province. So that's the role of HRD in the department. And I will take questions from here. This is a brief, we do more, but I decided to give the brief only of what is being done in NSG. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Chairperson, for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Mematwai, for that presentation. And also would like to apologize again about our connection. I know that the sound was not clear from our side as well. So would like to apologize for that. And also the presentation will be shared. Thanks also for sharing the best practices of contracting interns, supervisors, and mentors at the NSG. So if there are questions, please, we can post them on the Q&A. Thank you so much. So now we will be going straight to Ms. Sarah Makoba, who will be sharing about the supervisor and mentor perspective. Over to you, Manisara. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, please go ahead, Musa.
Good morning. I need to move from here. There's an echo.
You can go ahead, Musa. You sound fine. Thanks.
We can hear you, ma'am. Please proceed.
Okay. All right, let me proceed. There was an echo around me, so I thought maybe all of you can hear the echo. So if you are okay, then I can proceed. Thank you. My name is Sarah Makoba. Like my program director introduced me as one of the supervisors in the National School of Government. My role here today is to share the experience as the longest serving supervisor in the National School of Government. And hence my heading says my role as a supervisor. And the theme of this webinar is supervising, mentoring, and coaching youth in the context of developing future leaders. So, I was happy when I was listening to Dr. Mayer that she covered most of the things that I was going to talk about in sharing my understanding of my role as a leader or as a supervisor. So she spoke about a supervisor or a mentor coach as leaders, as they will be executing their duties as playing those three roles as supervising, mentoring, and coaching. And I also want to piggyback on the quotation made by Dr. Izzy when she said, we cannot build the future for the youth but we can build them for the future. So, which means we are busy building the young people to become our future leaders. And if you play that role, you need to have all those points that I indicated there. You look at your integrity as a supervisor, because this person is looking up to you. So are you really possessing the characteristics of a person who's supposed to lead a young person? You need to inspire them. You need to have clear goals. You need to be a good example. You need to have a vision. The vision either of the organization, of the vision for the two of us, where do we want to go as a supervisor, supervisee. There has to be a clear communication. So all those things there will be regarded as the excellent characteristics of a good leader. So I'm not going to dwell much on them, because most of these characteristics of a good leader in the form of a supervisor, a mentor, a coach, were clearly articulated by Dr. Meyer. So I'm going to move to the next slide that talks to my role now on the job. My responsibility will be to manage the workflow of the young person who is either an intern or an experiential learner, making sure that they are trained, creating and managing team schedules. I remember one of my interns the other day, I said to him, as an intern, you are not only here to learn how to type a submission, you also have to learn your soft skills. You also have to learn your soft skills. I wasn't aware that I was not on video. But my phone in Setswana, somebody will translate it for me. People need to see the person behind the voice. That's me. Reporting, like Mematwai said, part of the responsibility of a supervisor, even the supervisee, is to make sure that there's a reporting to HR, but they also need to make sure that they know how to do their performance agreements, how to do their performance assessment with the help of the supervisor, and then as well as making sure that the senior manager allocated the intern is also on the loop and can also account to the work that the intern is doing in the chief directorate or in the unit. And the evaluation of performance of the supervisee as well is very key in the person who is allocated the responsibility of walking the path with the intern and then helping to resolve employee issues and dispute. We are all human beings. It doesn't mean when we are an intern in an organization, you won't have issues. So issues will always be there, but then as a supervisor, you'll have to intervene and assist where possible, and then identify and apply career advances opportunities, making sure that you arrange for courses to develop the supervisee. My slide is stuck now. Okay. Right, let's see. I am stuck. All right. The next slide, I was going to talk to the code of conduct for both supervisee and supervisor, because in most cases, we don't emphasize on the policy imperatives of the organization and of the government at large. We manage and we supervise based on what we know, only to find that sometimes we end up leading them to things that they're not supposed to do because you don't even follow the regulations on how to supervise your supervisees. I tried, I'm still struggling. Okay, it's okay, I'll continue. Then the slides that were following were about the code of conduct, how they should conduct themselves in the workplace, and the constitution and the vision of the organization is what they need to know. They need to know the objectives of especially of the chief directorate that they find themselves in, so that they can understand what is it that they need to do in the organization. And then I was also going to I was going to zoom to a few of them that I was supposed to highlight as to how the supervisor must behave in a work environment. The most important one is behavior in the work environment. And the behavior in most cases is because you'll find that the permanent staff are behaving in a particular way that is not according to the code of conduct or according to the organizational policies. And then some of these young people, they tend, because it is an easy way out, so they tend to follow. So I tend to agree with Dr. Meyer when he said we need to lead by example, because then they tend to think it's how employees should behave, especially if you come to work late, you knock off early, you don't respect your supervisors, as the person who is supervising the intern especially. So you need to make sure that the environment around the interns is the environment that will depict what you want this person to become. But if you're going to behave otherwise and expect this person to behave in line with the policies of the organization, in line with the code of conduct, in line with the, all right, I was going to say in line with the culture. So I don't want to say the culture, mainly because the culture may be against, because some departments, they've got cultures that are not necessarily according to the policies of the organization. So it cannot be the culture, it can only be how the organization have crafted their policies in terms of the dress code, lunch hours, flexi hours, and so forth. So that was the issues that I wanted to highlight. And I also wanted to highlight the challenges towards the conclusion of my experience as a supervisor. The challenges mainly is communication between supervisor and supervisee, or between the team or the organization at large, or HR as the custodian of the interns in the organization. My other challenge that I was going to talk to was resources. My experience is not only in the NSG, but in the NSG, I know the interns are very resourced. But because we have interns maybe from other departments and the ones that are still anticipating to become interns, we are sometimes take this project or program as a way of ticking the box as departments that we also had interns just for reporting purposes, but we are not providing necessary resources for these interns to be able to learn as much as they can, so that we can then achieve the results of the objectives that we have set for ourselves as government, that we're going to give them the experience they need to be able to be employable. So the resources is especially in some of the provinces, they always complain about the resources. They are not given the resources. And again, it's work allocation. In most cases, some of them, we take them as people who are just there to come, and when you need somebody to make copies. So those are also the challenges that we're experiencing. Are they allocated the activities that will make them be able to compete in the market? So we also need, and I'm happy that the DPSA is here. They need to assist maybe in monitoring where if departments are doing what they're supposed to do with interns, not having them for 24 months, but they did not learn anything out of that department. The only thing that they learned is coming to work at 9 o'clock and knocking off at 12 o'clock. So by the time one of those interns, if they get employment elsewhere where there's order, they will think that the supervisor is maybe unreasonable, because they learned that in government you can do as you wish. So monitoring in terms of whether this program is not for us to tick a box, but to do what we're supposed to do. And another challenge is the regulations in government. We, for 2 years, have to put our effort to making sure that this become, the young people become the best, how can I put it? The best potential future public servants. But then when you advertise posts, you'll find that the posts that are advertised, HR will tell you that the Equity Act of the department doesn't allow you to appoint, and you see that this person is capable and this person is portraying those characteristics of a public service cadre, and you have been supporting this person, but then the system will work against this person being employed in the public service. So for me, it's like there's a little bit of us trying to build future leaders, especially in the public service, and later on saying, hey, we won't be able to appoint you because the act requires us to appoint this particular person. So by the time maybe then the act allows you to appoint the person that you know is a good public service cadre, then the person would have been appointed elsewhere, maybe even out of the country, and then increasing our brain drain in the country. So I remember asking the DG DPSA when they were launching. Luckily, I was part of the launch of the new program, the Future of Work. I asked about these regulations that are working against us in making sure that we've got the young people, especially who are showing that they can be better leaders of tomorrow. So how do we then, when we bring these young people into the public service, to build them to become better leaders in the public service, and then our policies work against us? And then one of the example, the issue of public servants not being allowed to exit the public service when they are 55. So I said to the DG, if I am 55 and I want to exit so that I can make space for the young leaders, and the policy says I cannot exit because I will be penalized to take an early retirement. So isn't it that this policy is working against what you want to see in future young leaders in government, the ones that are able to operate in the 4IR environment? So those are most of the challenges that I have experienced in me supervising the young people. And I must tell that in supervising them, you could see that there are those who are willing, there are those who are a bit slow. So at the same time, I would say we are striking a balance in terms of the younger people who are in the public service who are willing to serve, and the other ones who are a bit slow in terms of, and even with the older generation, we've got those who are still willing to serve, who are still demonstrating that they can still be good public service cadres, and there are those who are dragging their feet. So we've got a balance, but we need to make sure that we support them. And with that, colleagues, and I want to apologize for my slides. Maybe I could have done even an excellent job, better than what I did, because I lost my slide. I couldn't print earlier because the printer is also not working. So those are the challenges that we come across as public servants. But at least I was able to share my experience. And Program Director, I'll be here for questions going forward if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manisara, for that detailed presentation. And I must also highlight that Ms. Sarah here was also my supervisor when I was an intern. She is very, very passionate about youth development. She will make sure that she sharpens your skills to be the best version of yourself. So thank you so much, Mansara, for that presentation. And also I must highlight that we have questions that are directed to NSG, DPSA, and Dr. Lucille on Q&A, if they can kindly respond to them. Before I go to Mr. Nkomane. Mr. Nkomane, I'm sure where you are ready just to share with a mentee perspective. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you, Program Director Ayanda. It's Mr. Nkomane, by the way. Colleagues and everybody in attendance, I've been invited here to share my story as somebody who started within government as an intern and has rose up on the ranks to become a member of senior management staff. So mine, it will be a story from when I was an intern and how mentorship, coaching, and supervision has assisted me along the way to become to come to the level that I am, where I am today. So my story will start. Just before I start, I just want to say, from what has been presented by Dr. May and all the colleagues from DPSA and also the NSG colleagues regarding how interns are mentored, are coached, and supervised, government has really came a long, long way. There were no legislations speaking or directives speaking to interns when I started. So my journey started way back in 2008. From what have been presented, it seems like a long time ago, when I started my internship with SASSA in Gauteng. It was an internship where we were recruited to do debt review. During that time, a lot of government employees had applied for social grants and there were no early warning systems that will catch them. So government had to go back and review those files in order to see where they can recoup the money. And I was part of that team that were doing that debt review and recommending where money should be recouped. Based on my experience back then, there were no plan for mentorship. There were no plans for coaching. It was you were brought in and trained to do a certain job. You did the job and then you left. That was the structure of the internship. There were also no performance agreements. You were given daily target to say, for this week, you need to do so much. And if you reach those targets, you could just laze around and do nothing. And there was nobody to guide us there to say, you need to improve yourself, you need to do this and that, you need to attend this course. And to be honest, during that time, there were no training courses aimed at interns. I was part of that internship for 9 months, and I never attended even a single training course. I never had a one-on-one with the supervisor at that time. It was usually team meetings, and they were usually focused on the work and not on the individual. So that was my my experience during my internship and comparing it with what I see today. Especially, I will speak from the experience of the NSG and the finance unit, which I'm part of. We really have came a long way. Our interns, we ensure that they get exposure within the entire finance unit. The intern will spend a certain month in creditors, they will then move for certain months in debtors. They will be given responsibilities in assets. So we try to give them a well-rounded experience to ensure that whenever they complete their internship, they have knowledge to go out there and try and compete for some of the jobs that are available on the market. So my presentation also after that, after the internship also, sorry, I moved to another state-owned entity where I had a job at a junior level. That's where the mentorship, the coaching, and the supervision came. The only formalized part of that arrangement was the supervision. And there was also no mentorship as a junior member of staff, which is critical for development. There was also no coaching. So I'm gonna speak about mentorship and define a mentor as a person who shares their knowledge, skill, or experience to help another person develop. And then also a coaching, when I refer to a coach, it's someone who provides guidance to assist you achieve your goals and your full potential. So there was none of that. It was only the supervision. And at the time, I was part of the finance unit, which it wasn't a big unit. There was one financial manager. He was supervising all of us. And she was my first mentor in a sense. But as I've said before, it wasn't arranged, it wasn't formal because I just came into the company, coming back from my internship. I was trained on what to do. And just like my internship, I did that. I did my work. And if I see that I've done enough, I will just lazy around, speak to other colleagues, just not thinking about developing myself, thinking about getting more knowledge. So I think that by then the supervisor realized that, okay, this one, he does his work, I'm fine with that, but he needs more to do. But the way she went about it, she didn't approach me, we didn't have a sit down, she just came to my desk one day and said, you know what, I think you need to have more responsibilities. So what I need from you to do from now on, you will prepare the GL recon file. That's what she said. And then she left me there. To my mind, I was like, okay, maybe she'll come back and let me know where to prepare this GL file. I was still new in the company, so I didn't know when these things were supposed to be prepared. And after a week or so, she came back. She had a big personality. So she would, if she was unhappy with you, she would just scream. And then she wouldn't care whether it's your colleagues are around or whoever, she would just stand there and scream at you. And she did the very same thing to me. She came in, she screamed, where's my recon file? Where? And I was confused. Didn't know. I went and searched for the recon file. I found the one from the previous month. I gave it to her. She said, no, I told you that you are the one who's supposed to prepare the recon file. I need a new file that you prepared. And that's when I started asking questions. How am I supposed to do this? When is it due? And she said, no, you should have asked me those questions when I gave you the task. Go and prepare the file. I want to see it before the end of the day. And from there on, I went and started asking for help, which I should have done in the first place. I found someone who was able to assist me, who was able to show me. And from doing that file, I started to get an understanding of what we were doing as a unit. I started to get understanding of what the company as a whole was doing and what was our contribution as a unit. So that was my first mentorship. And from there, I started to realize, you know what, I need to empower myself to know more and to gain more experience. And I started, instead of waiting for her to come to me, I started approaching her, requesting for more things to do. I started to realize that one day I would like to do what she was doing. And then that mentorship relationship developed. It wasn't, like I've said, it wasn't formalized, it wasn't structured like that. I would just walk up to her and request for more work, and she would assist it. And reflecting back on those times, I also realized that I also had someone who played a coaching role. It was a colleague. She was older than me, but we were also on the same level. She had been with the company for a while, but she was the one, as Mesara have said before, that she was the one who would guide me. She became a coach of some sort, because she would guide me. She would give me the insight to the company, how to do things, how to behave. Sometimes the culture, when it's negative, you would also like to practice that culture that you found there. But she was the one who will pull me back in line. And one of the things that she used to say frequently to me, she used to say that one day when you are a manager, you need to do this. You need to treat people this way. And I would hear those statements and I will just laugh. And then I realized one day that I really need to develop. And then she would say to me, one thing that she assisted with, she said to me, you know, because we were working in finance and there was also group accounting, group department for group reporting. And then she said to me, you know, there used to be an assistant group accountant in that group reporting unit. I think you should go there, just ask around and see what happened to that role. I went to the department, I asked, and then they told me that the role was cancelled. And through consultation with my supervisor, I went back there and volunteered to assist, just to learn more about the company, to learn more of what they do, how they are reporting. And I started assisting, working for both units, the financial accounting and the financial reporting unit. So I was going back and forth with those units. There also, I was also mentored. I was given new knowledge. My skills were enhanced. I was sent to courses until I permanently joined the group reporting unit. So to cut a long story, I then came to the National School of Government in a deputy director role. And remembering from my first encounter with my then supervisor, Dr. Easy, she told me, look, I looked at your CV. I'm happy you are here. I looked at your CV and you currently have an undergrad qualification. Why are you not studying further? And reflecting back, that was a form of coaching from her to say, you are here, you have an opportunity, we offer bursaries, you need to further your studies. And that got me thinking, and I started registering. And I've been here at the National School of Government for around almost 8 years. And from my time here, I've acquired 2 postgraduate qualifications. I'm currently working on my master's, and it was from that sort of interaction from a supervisor we decided to become a coach and to say, this is where you need to improve. And she had assisted me a lot. I've came a long way since meeting her. She was that sort of a person who will also take a look at where you are lacking and tell you to improve. There were also other colleagues who became mentors here at the NSG, and they would also contribute towards my growth. And as a result, that's my story, the long and the short of it. And for my presentation, I was asked to answer the following question, just to give advice to the interns and those who are want to step up to that role. Just to mention that, what role did a mentor and supervisor play in my growth? I've alluded to that. Without any mentoring and coaching, I wouldn't be where I am today. And the other question I was asked is, how would you define a good supervisor? I think Dr. Meyer has answered that question. A good supervisor is someone who's supervising with deliberate intention. And those intentions, it must be intention to grow a person. It must be intention to ensure that when the person leaves the organization or they leave the unit, they leave in being rich in wealth than when they came in. You need to help them acquire more skill and more experience. And the final question I was asked to answer was, what characteristics or attributes must a young person have when they enter the internship or start a job? Firstly, I will say that they must be willing to learn. I think at an entry-level stage or at an internship stage, knowledge is your best friend. You need to acquire as much knowledge as you can. Firstly, it should be knowledge around your unit, what you are currently doing and what does your job entail. You need to know, to gain knowledge about your entire organization. What is the purpose of your entire organization? How do they fulfill their mandate? And how does your job fit into the mandate of the organization? I think some of us, we get that silo mentality to say, I'm working on this unit, this is what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna focus on it, and neglect all the other organizations, units, and contributors. So you need to have an open mind. You need to volunteer. You need to volunteer your time. You need to be inquisitive. And most importantly, you need to take notes. It's very important to take note in order to remember things that were the knowledge that was imparted to you. And I think that's the long and the short of it. And I'm gonna close program director with some 4 slides for the interns and for all those who wants to be future interns. Just short stories about the knowledge that I've gained in the work environment. I'm gonna share my screen now. I hope everyone can see. Yeah, it says, a crow was sitting on a tree doing nothing all day. A small rabbit saw the crow and asked him. Sorry?
Hello. Hi, Mr. Nkomane.
Yes.
Yes, is it possible that your slides, you can share them in the platform due to time? Because right now we still have one last presentation from national departments as well as provinces. So please bear with us and just share this one on the platform, and then we'll take it from there, because we need to give them a chance. We were scheduled up to 12 o'clock, and I see that now time is going beyond that.
All right, no worries.
You can just conclude. You can just give you 2 minutes, conclude, and then yeah, we go. Thank you.
My slides were a few. They were my conclusion, but I will share them. So I would just like to take this opportunity to thank colleagues from the NSG for the invitation to share my story, and also wish good luck to all the interns and the future interns. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elisego, for that presentation. Indeed, you were mentored very well. We can see that. All right. Now I will go to the last presentation. This one is for the provinces as well as national. In national, we've got 2 speakers. So I will give you guys 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. We just need to run because we're scheduled up to 12 o'clock. So just to share your experiences, lessons relating to mentoring, coaching, as well as the supervision. So I will start with Ms. Ntotole Matlakala from Office of the Premier, Limpopo, just to share 2 minutes. And then after that, Mr. Mpofu, please be on the standby, as well as Mr. Mbongeni Mngube. Please be on the standby after Mpofu. Thank you so much. Over to you guys. Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues, or good day, colleagues. I will just be brief because some of the things that have been spoken about by my former speakers, and I also like to thank the opportunity that has been granted to us. Because of time, I'll just rush to things. And the challenges that we are encountering as a province, the issue of culture amongst the organizations, the leadership that we have in our organization, that hampers the exposure of our children, of our learners in the organization. And I also like to quote something that when we are talking here, we also talk about intent. And I need to ask, the chapter 10 of the Constitution says, service must be provided impartially, fairly, equitable, and without bias to all the learners on the developmental programs. So that when we speak, we must not have a word that says intense, forgetting that we have got other learners that are participating already in the programs. The challenges that we are encountering in the province, I will be brief, is the issue that learners are having, moving from one department to another, due to the issue of stipend is still prevailing because the sitters are not complying with the directive that we have. Another challenge, and which we want the DPSA to engage the head on that. The other challenge that we have is the issue of lack of devices in the workplace. We don't have resources. As I'm connecting here, I'm connecting with my data, and then we don't have resources. If I, as an employee, connecting with my data, what is happening with our learners? It's very serious, and then we need, I don't know, at times I even think of how we should organize some labor issues here because learners are not being taken care of. So it's an thorny issue in our organization. And another issue that we have as a challenge is the issue of learners placed in the department in order to augment not the structure, but to fill the positions that are not filled. It's already been talking about, and it's not nice. The other challenge is the appointment of learners. Learners, it is going to be difficult for them to be appointed because, as Mr. Gorman was indicating, that we don't give them the adequate resources, the adequate mentorships, adequate many things. The other things that we also have as a challenge in the province, the issue of changing of leadership. If a new leaders come and then it's not needed in a certain unit, is thrown to HRD without the knowledge of how HRD is working. And that hampers the development that we want to implement in the implementation of the organization. I think the issue of qualification related to work, it should, because the leadership also, it may have influence and impact on the issue of leaders that are being imposed to other sections that they don't have expertise towards that. And it's a challenge because these learners, when they come, Dr. Meyer was talking about the issue of learners learners, when they come into the organization, they find us at the peak of freeze. There's no lack of work because of the environment that we find ourselves working in. So it is a difficult environment. We need the DPSA to assist us in terms of the allocation of leaders in the relevant positions at the workplace. We're oversighting it, we're not taking it seriously, but it does have a negative impact in the implementation of our programs in our HRD sector. So let me not go deeper. And then the other issues, the that are coming on board is the issue of attitude of learners. You know, if learners, they're in their organization and they're about to exit, yay, and they already have affairs in the organization due to the, you can't say they must not have affairs. Maybe they are politically connected. You can't say a thing to them. They will be telling what to do. And the issue of monarch system, where the seniors, as they're being told that seniors, and these learners, when they have, because in supervision and mentoring, it's a two-way process. But because of the monarch system that we find ourselves in, learners are unable to penetrate in our system and find themselves being belonging to an organization. Thank you for the moment that have been granted to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ole, for sharing. Right now, I will just give it to Mr. Mpofu. You've got
good morning.
2 minutes.
Yes, I'll try to spend less than 2 minutes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's also very important that I mention that I'm also a former intern myself, and one of the, I think one thing that will make me spend less than 2 minutes is that, look, we need to deal with the issue of entitlement in the internship program, both from the mentors and the mentees themselves, the interns or the graduate interns or learner interns. Is that, you see, from the mentorship side, is that, you know, when we have exhausted and trained everything that we can possibly do to an intern, and that the intern still has about 12 months remaining on the 24 months contract that they have with the department, why are we still holding on to them, not exposing them to other fields that are within their qualifications? That is very important. We fall in love so much with the interns that, you know, we find joy in saying, my intern is able to do this, my intern is able to do that in my absence. But we are forgetting that we are killing and destroying the careers that of the very same interns, because when job opportunities appear, get advertised within the public service, it's either within HR, there's HRD, there's HR conditions of service, there's recruitment and selection. Rather, let's take the opportunity when we have exhausted all the knowledge that we can all possibly impart. Let them go to another section for maximum exposure. That's very important. Again, creating the entitlement from the entitlement of the intern, that because I'm entrusting my everything on them. We create this sense of that, no, when the contract ends, we will try by all means to retain them, when we know that the processes might not allow, even in the structure of the organization, there is no vacancy for that intern. Now we want to create this thing. No, I want to keep my intern is very good. If the intern is very good, why are you still holding on to that intern? So dealing with that entitlement from both the mentor and the mentee, including the supervisor of the unit, is very critical, because we are destroying careers instead of building careers, which is the primary purpose of this program. Secondly, dealing with the issue of accountability from both the mentor and the intern again. As mentors, we must be able to account for our duties and our responsibilities when we are mentoring these interns. It's very, very much important that we know what needs to be done. And adhering to the code of conduct of the public service is very important. We cannot expect the interns to adhere to the code of conduct of the public service, yet we ourselves are not adhering to it. So that is very, very, very important from my side, because I don't want to dwell too much. Okay, the last aspect would be the issue of ageism, or the issue of ageism and perceived ageism within the public service, where the intern, because they are young, we believe that they cannot give us opinions, or they cannot have opinions. And where, because we've been in the system for more than 20 years, 30 years, we believe that we know it all, forgetting that our qualifications, when we got them, the system and the situations have changed. The environments and the legislation that govern our work might have changed. even though we work within the directives, but the legislation might have been amended, and these interns that we perceive as to be young and don't have knowledge, have got the knowledge of the current legislations that govern our workspace. And we should allow them the platform to express their opinions and be able to have views on the work that we are doing. And then we can be able to guide from there to say, you know what, this is what we think should be done, but this is how we should best do it within the frameworks of the public service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mpofu, for sharing. Thank you so much. Mr. Mngube, please close off. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. In less than 2 minutes, I'll be done, I promise. All the speakers that have spoken, I think I share the same sentiments. All I wanted to highlight on a positive note is just to say the mentorship or the internship program has taught me, as somebody who has been coordinating the developmental programs for quite some time within the public service. It's a relationship, it's a long-lasting, I would say it's a lifelong relationship that a seasoned and a wise person or who is there to support the less experienced individual. And all these people, they benefit from this particular process of supporting each other. So it's a relationship that is supported all the ways, top, bottom up, it doesn't matter. In terms of the intern, or the less experienced person gets in terms of personal growth, career growth, so that the person become a competent and a professional, somebody that can be appointed in the public service or anywhere else within the sectors that are available. And also the contribution that the young professional bring to the public service is the issue of productivity, because they do assist us or assist government department to achieve their objectives in terms of the APP or the business plan that we are supposed to deliver on a regular basis. And the mentor on the flip side also fulfills the objective of supporting somebody's career for a lifetime, because that person becomes a point of reference in the future or in the pipeline or throughout the career of that young person that he has assisted to grow. Also, it also assists in terms of developing the leader. As a mentor, you develop as a leader, you know the way of dealing with people, you gain a skill in terms of solving their problems, not only career-related or work-related problems, also personal problems from the young person that comes to you or look up to you as a mentor. So in closing, I would say, as I've mentioned previously, in terms of service delivery, improving capacity in government is one of the roles that HR benefits in that regard. We improve government capacity so that the government can deliver on its mandate and also have accelerated service delivery. At the same time, building the nation and also fulfilling the government's agenda of developmental state. Thank you very much, Chairperson and distinguished guests.
Thank you so much, Mbongeni. That was short and sweet, straight to the point. Right now, I will just give to Dr. Lucille, maybe just the closing remarks from you, and then it will be followed by Mr. Nyiko Mabunda, closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Chairperson, I'm going to be very brief. It's deep gratitude for everyone who's been on this webinar. I look forward to many, many more engagements. I love the insights by people who spoke about their own experiences, like Mr. Komani. I think we have the potential to effect the changes that we need in the public service and in society at large. Radical love is not a fuzzy concept. In fact, when we serve with love, we are holding ourselves to the highest standards of accountability, because we know we're doing this for every single citizen. So deep gratitude for the engagement, and I look forward to many more conversations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc, for that closing remarks. Thank you. I think now I must give it to Mr. Nyiko Mabunda. Just closing remarks for us from DPSA. Thank you.
Ayanda, looks like Mr. Mabunda is no longer here.
Okay. Is Buntle around?
I'm not sure. I can't see them. Maybe we must just work towards closing. Oh, yo.
Okay. Thank you very much, Program Director. Just from the DPSA, we just have to maybe be thankful of this, for the NSG to be hosting this kind of webinar. And we have noted the number of questions that have been raised, and we will try and respond to some of these questions that has been raised. I'm not sure, Chairperson, if I really have to.
Okay, it seems like we got hard. All right. All right, no, thank you, the PSA for that. All right, I think now we have come to the end of the session. We would like, to thank all the speakers that were invited for making sure that they come and share their own experiences, lessons, and so forth. And also thanks the participants, because I think we're having about 300 participants from various departments. We thank you so much for that. And we can see that, people want more of these platforms, especially when it comes to youth development. So we will make sure as a unit that we schedule more of these platforms, and we invite different guests to come and share their own experiences with us. So thank you so much. And also I want to highlight that at NSG we have a mentoring and a coaching program. So those who are interested, they can contact our contact center. The details will be shared via email just to get the quotation, and then we take it from there. Also, thank you so much, everyone who attended. Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye, Ayanda. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.